Welcome back to the channel. My name is Brian Kingsbury. Today we got a special video for you. We're going to continue with the series on reggae legends. We've done Bob Marley. I think the last one we did was Toots Hibbert. Today we're going to learn a little bit more about Dennis Brown. So he's the latest legend. If you want to check out all the artists that we've talked about, there is a folder on the site that you can check out and when you're done here. But let's find out a little bit more about Dennis Brown, reggae legend. When people talk about reggae royalty, the crown usually rests on one head. But ask the artists themselves, the singers who grew up studying phrasing, breath control, harmony, and heart, and another name comes up with reverence. They call him the Crown Prince of Reggae. Long before he was a legend, before he toured the globe and carried Jamaican music into nightclubs in London and dance halls in New York, he was just a little boy with a big voice in Kingston, a child who sounded like he'd already lived 3 lifetimes. This is the story of Dennis Brown, the man who didn't just sing reggae, he helped define its soul. Dennis Emmanuel Brown was born on February 1st, 1957 in Kingston, Jamaica, a city buzzing with sound systems, church choirs, and street corner harmonies. Music wasn't a luxury in Kingston, it was oxygen. He grew up in a devout household. His father, Arthur Brown, was deeply involved in church and gospel music, which shaped Dennis's early sense of melody and message. Before he was tall enough to reach a microphone stand, Dennis was performing at church gatherings and local events. And here's what stunned people. He didn't sound like a child. He sounded seasoned, steady, mature. By the time he was 11 years old, Dennis had recorded his first single, 11. While most kids were playing cricket in the yard, he was in a studio learning how to shape vowels around rhythm. In the late 1960s, he worked with legendary producer Coxsone Dodd at Studio One, Jamaica's equivalent of Motown. Studio One was a finishing school for greatness. If you survived there, you emerged polished. Dennis didn't just survive, he thrived. By his early teens, Dennis Brown was already releasing hit records. Songs like No Man is an Island carried a message of unity and resilience, themes that would later define his entire career. At 15, most teenagers are still figuring out who they are. Dennis already knew. He was a lover singer. But not in a superficial way, not syrupy or forced, but romantic in the purest reggae sense. His voice wrapped around heartbreak and hope in equal measure. When he sang about love, it felt sacred. By the 1970s, Jamaica was in political turmoil. Violence and economic hardship weighed heavily on communities. Reggae became the voice of resistance, spirituality, and upliftment, and Dennis Brown found himself at the center of that cultural movement. It was during this era that he crossed paths with Bob Marley. Marley famously referred to Dennis as the Crown Prince of Reggae. That wasn't a casual praise. That was an endorsement from the king himself. The mid to late 1970s were Dennis Brown's golden years. Albums like Visions of Dennis Brown and Wolf and Leopards showcased a singer in full command of his instrument. His tone was velvet, his phrasing effortless, his emotional delivery unmistakable. He wasn't shouting revolution, he was crooning it. He wasn't preaching Rastafari, he was embodying it. Songs like Money in My Pocket would later become international hits, breaking into UK charts and introducing wider audiences to his sound. Unlike some reggae artists who struggle to cross over, Dennis did so naturally, and yet he never felt commercial. He remained rooted. There's a certain humility in his recordings. Even at the height of his fame, Dennis sang as though he were still that church boy in Kingston. As reggae evolved into subgenres, Dennis adapted. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, the UK reggae scene embraced lovers rock, a smoother, romantic style influenced by soul and R&B. Dennis Brown became one of its shining stars. His ability to balance conscious lyrics with romantic ballads made him unique. He could sing about spiritual uplift in one track and heartbreak in the next, and neither felt out of place. He released an astonishing number of songs during his career, hundreds. Some estimates suggest over 75 albums and countless singles. That's not just productivity, that's devotion. But even princes feel pressure. The 1980s were complicated. As reggae transitioned into dancehall, the industry shifted. Digital rhythms replaced live bands. Younger artists emerged with sharper, more aggressive styles. Dennis remained relevant, but the soundscape was changing. Behind the scenes, he struggled. The lifestyle, touring, studio sessions, the nightlife took a toll. Substance use became a factor in his life, as it did for many musicians of the era. Friends and fellow artists would later speak about the toll that constant performance and expectation can take on a sensitive soul. Because that's what Dennis was, sensitive. He sang with so much emotion because he felt everything deeply. Even as musical trends shifted, Dennis Brown's influence only grew. Artists across generations cite him as a primary inspiration. From roots singers to modern reggae revivalists, his phrasing and melodic style became a blueprint. He didn't need flashy theatrics. He stood still, held the mic, and let the song do the talking. And that might be his greatest legacy, restraint in a genre that sometimes leaned towards spectacle. When you listen closely, you realize Dennis Brown wasn't just singing lyrics. He was communicating warmth, comfort, reassurance. He made reggae feel like a conversation between friends. In the 1990s, Dennis continued to record and tour, though his health began to decline. Years of strain, both physical and emotional, caught up to him. On July 1st, 1999, Dennis Brown passed away at the age of 42 in Kingston. 42, an age when many artists are just reaching maturity. His passing shook the reggae world. Tributes poured in from Jamaica, the UK, and beyond. Radio stations played his classics non-stop. Fellow musicians described him as irreplaceable. He wasn't just admired, he was loved. Today, reggae continues to evolve. New voices arise, new rhythms emerge. But if you trace the lineage of modern reggae singing, the melodic smoothness, the romantic sensibility, the spiritual undertone, you inevitably arrive at Dennis Brown. He bridged eras. He balanced romance with righteousness. He made vulnerability sound strong. And perhaps that's why Bob Marley's title still feels fitting. Not because Dennis Brown chased the throne, but because he carried himself like royalty without ever demanding the crown. Dennis Brown's catalog remains vast. His voice remains instantly recognizable. His songs still spin at backyard parties, in London clubs, and on Kingston street corners. He represents a time when reggae was both protest and poetry, when love songs carried dignity, when a teenager from Kingston could grow into a global icon simply by staying true to his sound. The crowned Prince of Reggae didn't need spectacle to reign. He needed only a microphone and a melody. And decades later, that melody still lingers. Alright, there you have it, a little look into the life of Dennis Brown. If you guys aren't familiar, get on Spotify, go on Apple Music, give him a listen, see what it's all about. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not really familiar with a lot of these reggae legends, but that's kind of why I'm doing these videos. Kind of teaching myself a little bit more about the genre of reggae music. And like I said, if you're interested in seeing more, there's more videos up on my channel. There's a little folder with all the reggae legends, and I'm going to continue adding to the folder. If you guys have a suggestion, be sure to get in that comment section and let me know who you want me to read about next, and I'll continue to do these videos. Thanks for watching this one to the very end. I'm Brian Kingsbury. We'll talk to you on the next one. Bye.